We are so fortunate in Ontario to have 4 distinct seasons. Now I know there are some winter haters out there, and I too have been there, peeking out of the window, just waiting for winter to go away. I spent an entire year in Australia, where when we have our summer, they have their winter, and when we have our winter, they have their summer. During the Australian winter, I was wearing a t-shirt and shorts and swimming in the ocean. I felt so lucky to be able to go through an entire year without having to go through a Canadian winter. I actually felt sorry for my friends and family back home who were enduring the freezing cold temperatures, the mountains of snow, all of the slush and the freezing rain. But you know, by the time the next winter rolled around and I was back in Canada, I was really missing winter. I decided to have a different mindset, to see my homeland the way that a tourist sees it, to look for all of the interesting things to do and the really cool places to see in my own backyard. I fully embraced winter, and I found out the secret to enjoying it. This is my pro tip for enjoying winter. Get into activities that you can only do in winter. Things like skiing, snowshoeing, dog sledding, ice climbing, skating, tobogganing, and building super cool snow forts. Winter is also one of my favorite times for wildlife tracking. Fresh snow provides a clean canvas to capture the movement and the stories of the wildlife around us. One of my favorite things to do in winter is to go out and find the tracks of a large mammal, like a moose, or a bear, or a wolf, or a deer, or a coyote, and then go out and just follow the trail. And it's amazing the beautiful places the animal can lead me, as well as how much I can learn about that animal and how it interacts with the world around it. One more pro tip for enjoying winter: make sure that you dress appropriately. There is no such thing as bad weather, just bad clothing. It's kind of cold. I absolutely love winter now, and I am so grateful that I get to experience it. I'm also amazed at how so many living things can survive the harsh conditions of winter. Atlantic salmon, for example. Their eggs are laid in cold water streams in November, and those eggs don't only survive, but they develop in water that is just barely above freezing. Atlantic salmon, like other cold water fish species, require low water temperature. If the water temperature gets too warm, then eggs, eyed eggs, alevin, fry, parr, smolt, and adults can all start to die. Our climate, with our cold winters, creates conditions that are necessary for Atlantic salmon survival. Of course, Atlantic salmon need more than just cold water to survive. This week, we're going to be learning about the habitat requirements of Atlantic salmon from Elizabeth, one of our OFAH Fitzsimmons Fish and Wildlife Conservation interns. Then we're going to hear another fishy fact from Johnny. But before we get to all of that, we're going to check on our hatcheries, and we're going to release the alevin from the condo in our warmer tank.
Checking on hatchery number 1. Our filter and air pump are functioning. Our temperature is 3.5 degrees Celsius. Our Atlantic salmon are still holding strong as eyed eggs. Checking on hatchery number 2. Filter, check. Air pump, check. Temperature, 7 degrees Celsius. Our 93 Atlantic salmon alevin are looking healthy and ready for us to release them from the condo.
Okay, so for my first step, what I want to do, because we've got electricity and water, so I'm going to, before I get my hands into this, I'm just going to unplug the unit. So now I've killed the power, and I'm going to rearrange. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rearrange the rocks because I don't want to move the rocks after the alevin have come out of the condo. And then I'm going to undo our nuts and bolts, and I'm going to really gently and slowly, because I don't want to stress the alevin out, I'm going to open up the condo like the wings of a butterfly, and the alevin are going to fall out into our rocks. Okay, so that's what I'm going to go ahead and do now.
As you saw, the alevin quickly found places in the rocks to hide from predators. I caught this one for a closer look. It appears to be healthy, with a good yolk sac to continue its growing. Let's now hear from our presenters.
Hi everyone, my name is Elizabeth Gallant and I work for the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters as the Fish and Wildlife Conservation Intern. And today, I want to talk to you about the habitat of Atlantic salmon. So let's get started. A habitat refers to the environment needed for a living thing to survive and reproduce. All living things, including Atlantic salmon, need the same 4 components to survive: food, water, space, and shelter. Young Atlantic salmon live in cold water streams, and there are a few things that young Atlantic salmon need to survive in these streams. They need clean, cold water because this keeps them healthy and prevents dirt from building up on the eggs. They also need fast-moving water because this creates small waves, which bring oxygen into the water and to the fish. They also need gravel at the bottom of the stream because this is where they are laid as eggs. Adult Atlantic salmon will build a nest out of small rocks, called a redd, almost like the way a bird makes a nest out of twigs. The adult then covers the eggs with gravel, which protects them from predators and keeps them from washing away downstream. The gravel is also important because young Atlantic salmon can hide from predators between the rocks. Also, small aquatic bugs that Atlantic salmon feed on, like the ones that you see here, live on and between these small rocks. And these often include the babies, or larvae, of common bugs that you often see on land, including dragonfly and stonefly larvae. Trees are another important habitat feature for Atlantic salmon for a bunch of reasons. By casting shade onto the stream, trees block the sun and keep the water cold, which helps keep Atlantic salmon healthy. Trees also help in a way that might not always be visible to us. The large root systems of trees help hold the soil in place along the shoreline, meaning that they also help to keep the water clean. Trees also help because fallen logs, branches, twigs, and leaves act as cover for fish and other living things. As small twigs and leaves break down, they then become food for the small creatures that Atlantic salmon will later eat. Larger rocks and boulders are also important because they create spots for Atlantic salmon to hide from predators like birds and other fish. They also create resting spots for fish because they block the current and create areas of slow-moving water. After 1 to 3 years in their stream environment, Atlantic salmon smolts swim downstream to big water. In Ontario, smolts swim to the big water of Lake Ontario. And because Lake Ontario is so large, it has all the things that adult Atlantic salmon need to survive. It has space for the adults to swim and grow, lots of fish and other organisms for the salmon to eat, and it also has really cold water. So after a few years in Lake Ontario, Atlantic salmon will swim back to the cold water stream where they hatched, so that they can lay eggs of their own. For Atlantic salmon to complete their life cycle, there needs to be habitat connectivity between cold water streams and a large lake or ocean. This means that adult Atlantic salmon need streams that are free of unpassable, man-made barriers like dams. Dams can completely block the stream, which prevents adults from swimming to the stream to lay their eggs. And this is why the Bring Back the Salmon program works hard to restore habitat connectivity between streams and Lake Ontario. Overall, the habitat of Atlantic salmon is pretty complex. Throughout their lives, they have two main habitats: cold water streams and Lake Ontario. Juveniles spend most of their time in cold water streams, and adults swim to Lake Ontario to feed and grow, before returning to their original cold water stream to lay eggs. For Atlantic salmon to complete their life cycle, habitat connectivity is essential.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fishy Facts. I'm Johnny Nene, and this week we're going to look at a species of fish from the other side of the world, the mudskipper. Let's take a look. Mudskippers are small tropical fish that are found in brackish and salt water in Asia, East Africa, and Northern Australia. Brackish water occurs when fresh and salt water mixes together. Mudskippers inhabit mudflat and mangrove swamp ecosystems and typically feed on algae, insects, and other small crustaceans. They have elongated bodies which can reach up to 30 centimeters long and big protruding eyes that are set near the top of their head. They can be silver or gray to greenish brown in color, ranging from dark to light. Mudskippers are often found on mud instead of in water. They may spend up to 3/4 of their life on land, and they have some cool adaptations that allow them to survive out of water. First, a fish out of water still needs oxygen, and mudskippers have specialized adaptations that allow them to absorb oxygen and store air in their gills. They can absorb oxygen through their skin, mouth, and throat. Second, they have specialized pectoral fins, which they use to help them move across land in an action called crutching, similar to a person who uses crutches to help them walk. However, mudskippers must avoid drying out and must remain moist at all times. To do this, they dig deep burrows in the mud, which not only help them to remain moist, but help them to regulate their body temperature, avoid aquatic predators during high tides, and it's where females lay their eggs. Mudskippers must maintain their burrows throughout the day as the tide rises and falls by excavating excess mud. To persuade females to lay eggs in their burrow, male mudskippers may perform acrobatic jumps, push-ups, and posturing. They can jump up to 2 feet in the air. Male mudskippers during this time will develop brightly colored spots on their bodies which help to attract females, and they will often engage with other males in territorial disputes. Once a female has chosen her mate, she follows him into the burrow where she lays hundreds of eggs. The male fertilizes the eggs and the female leaves soon after while the male remains to guard the burrow. Mudskippers are pretty unique fish, and their land-based traits set them apart from most other fish species. Have you ever seen a mudskipper skip? They use their tails to help them skip along the ground, which is where they get their name. And I hope you guys enjoyed learning about the mudskipper this week. Be sure to tune into the next episode where I'll be giving you some more cool and exciting fishy facts on a new species. Thanks, we'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for teaching us about Atlantic salmon habitats. And thanks, Johnny, for teaching us about mudskippers. In our next episode, we're going to be learning about the native range of Atlantic salmon, when and how they came into Lake Ontario, and some of the importance that this fish has had to some different cultures. From Chris Robinson, the manager of Fish and Wildlife Conservation Programs here at the OFAH. Until then, keep on swimming upstream.